Hey guys, this is the mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I wanted to share my thoughts about the escalating tensions between Martell and Melody and why I think it's happening now and what I think Martell's endgame is and how precarious this situation is for Melody. So I'm not surprised this is happening. A few months ago, I did an electional chart for the show and I discussed the fact that Pluto, Mars, and Saturn are intense aspects to each other, which indicates violence and competitiveness and abuse and nonstop fighting and contention. It's not surprising to me that this is happening. I said it was going to get worse before it got better because Pluto is essentially in charge of the show, and Pluto forces us to transform through painful crises, right? So this situation between the Holtz, Melody and Martell, is a painful moment for both of them, right? And it's going to force them to change their perspectives on themselves, their relationships, and life in general, okay? Some people think that Melody and Martell are both the same. They're both petty. They're both not thinking about the kids, which I don't think is fair. Yes, Martell and Melody are both competitive people. They're both determined to win. Martell and Melody both want to win, but one person is fighting to control the other, and the other person is fighting for their freedom, right? So what I think people are getting confused is the fact that Melody needs to use the same amount of energy to extricate herself from Martell's grip as Martell is using to maintain control over her. One of the things that I think Martell is trying to do is, at the very least, ruin her brand, because he blames her for ruining his brand when she did not protect him from his indiscretions, when she exposed to the world that he was abusing her behind the scenes by way of having an illicit affair with a mistress for several years. Okay, if we remember the last reunion they had, Martell kept blaming Melody for everything. He didn't give her credit for protecting him at all. What I think happened is, once Melody decided to break rank and she chose herself over this toxic, abusive marriage, Martell turned her into an enemy. Right? If you're not with me, you're against me. So Martell turned Melody into his arch enemy because she is no longer under his control. She's no longer going to use her energy and her reputation and her status and her work ethic, right, to make him look good, to make him look like father of the year, to make him look like the dominant parent, to make him look like he is the primary breadwinner. She has removed her energy from him, and she kind of pulled the rug out from under him because she revealed that the emperor has no clothes. That is what he resents her for the most. He resents her for saying a couple years ago, Martell got a baby on the way, right? And he is basically blaming her for ruining his reputation because she exposed the affair on the show. The main reason why she exposed the affair on the show was because Martell lied to Melody to get her on the show in the first place. Okay, so she was like, I'm not trying to live a lie. I'm not trying to live a lie. You used this show to manipulate me, to get me back under your control. And then you wanted to use the show to silence me, almost like a bribe, right? I got you this TV show. And if you want to keep up with our, Holt and Holt perfect marriage image, right? You're going to be quiet. You're going to protect my secrets. I think that Martell thought because Melody is very keen on building her brand as a mom and a businesswoman and, a great wife, I think that he thought that she would protect him in order to protect her brand as Mrs. Holt. And when she decided not to do that because the abuse became so blatant, egregious, and disrespectful, the mistress is now going on social media bragging about, what her husband's doing to her. The mistress was contacting Melody when she was pregnant, okay, and telling her about what Martell was doing to her. I think Martell thought that he could hide behind the show, and that Melody would protect him in order to protect her brand, as she had been doing all along. Martell is trying to take away from Melody the things that she values the most, her children and the brand that she has built, okay? And Martell may feel like she sacrificed him to build her brand. What is interesting is that Martell doesn't seem to understand that most of the public disgust towards him is not necessarily because of the affair and the baby, because we know famous men who do this all the time. It's the way he treated her. during the divorce process and even after the divorce. The way Martell treated Melody after he divorced her was absolutely horrendous, okay? And this entire situation is a clusterfuck because in Martell's mind, Melody did more harm to him than he did to himself. Melody did more harm to him than Arion did. Arion was the one who did several interviews with Tasha K, exposing all the tea about their relationship while trying to throw Melody under the bus. But she only managed to make Martell look even worse. And Melody got even more support after Arion's interview with Tasha K that broke the internet, right? So Martell has more animosity towards Melody because Melody has broken rank. As soon as she said, I'm filing for divorce and I'm not changing my mind, she became his enemy. So no matter what she did was going to be perceived as a threat or an attack against him because she was no longer under his control. And because she was no longer under his control, she now had the power to expose him for who he really is. So Martell is doing what most men do when they want to make a woman look bad. Call her a hoe. Because in his chauvinistic mind, right, it's still 1976. And a woman's chastity, okay, and her woman's sexuality, what she does with her body, is a reflection of her intrinsic core value, right, and her social status. So if a woman decides to step out on her marriage, right, just for a little fling, okay, in retaliation to her husband getting a woman pregnant several times, he knows that society will judge her more harshly than it's judged him. So he's going to try to use sex to make her look like a slut or a hoe, right? And he's going to try to do that to justify what he did to her. At the same time, he was begging for her to get back with him. He was begging for her to reconcile with him. He did it before the show and even after the show. And I'm sure he was still doing it up until recently. I'm very, very sure of that. So she's only a hoe when she doesn't give him what he wants. And if Melody ever reconciled with Martell, he would continue to cheat on her and justify his behavior by saying, you cheated on me in the past. I can't trust you now. You're not giving me what I want. So Martell said something like, you didn't have time for me and the kids when you were married, right? What's interesting is that Martell always touts himself as an entrepreneur. He said that he was the primary breadwinner, which to me means that he was the reason why the family was able to make money with the family business, okay? But an entrepreneur or real business person understands the amount of time and sacrifice it takes to start a business, okay? To not just start a business, to grow a business. The reason why Martell couldn't understand that is because he wasn't doing the work. So in my opinion, in my mind, I'm thinking that he started to compete with the business that his wife was investing the majority of her time into. When you are starting a business and trying to grow a business, it is a nonstop thing. It's 24/7 damn near. It's not like having a job when you can come home after having sex with your mistress in a motel and then the work stops. No, Melody was probably still getting emails from suppliers overseas overnight because there's a different time zone, right? So she would probably stay up to the wee hours of the night just checking her emails to make sure things were okay with suppliers, with vendors, or whatever. I don't know the construction business, but I've worked at jobs where, you know, the company has suppliers and vendors overseas. So they would be getting emails constantly, right? And even though office hours ended at 5 or 6 o'clock, you know, the heads of the company were flying to different parts of the world to secure contracts with international clientele, right? While everybody else was home sleeping, you know, the owners of the company had to do a lot of correspondence off hours, okay? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, because that's when they were waking up in the morning overseas. I don't think Martell understood this. And I don't think Martell cared because he only respected the business for the clout and the money and the power that it gave him. I don't think he respected the business for what it really was, another entity. A corporation is like another person. A business is like a child. You have to pour into it and invest a lot of time, energy, and effort into building it to be successful. Not just successful, it has to grow, right? You don't want to maintain with a business. You're going to constantly want to grow and increase your bottom line to make it lucrative to potential investors, okay? So Melody was doing all the legwork for that. So she had less time to be with Martell. And at some point, Martell tried to compete with his business because the business was more interesting to Melody than he was, okay? So instead of taking advantage of the free time where Melody wasn't there, to learn more about the ins and outs of the business, to study for his builder's license, to help Melody in a way that would make it easier for her to fall back and do less work, he decided to have an affair That's where his priorities were, right? So we can see what Melody's priorities were when it came to their business, because we saw an increase in income and revenue. And we saw an increase in the number of children Martell had based on what his priorities were, okay? Melody's priority was the business, which helped their whole family. And Martell's priority was his penis, which gave him a whole new baby by another woman while he was married. But Martell is most angry with the fact that Melody stopped protecting him from his own dysfunction. She stopped allowing herself to be used, okay, to make Martell look good while he tore her ass down behind the scenes. And he was doing this before they even got married, right? Which is why Melonica said that Martell was trying to flirt with her assistant, right? And why Melody said in the first year of their marriage, they could barely celebrate their anniversary because Martell was abusive to her then. This was happening long before the business started. So I think at a certain point, Melody began to enjoy her business more than she enjoyed Martell, because Melody got more of a reward from her business than she did with her husband. No matter what she did for Martell, it was never going to be enough. But when Melody invested in the business, there was some return, right? There was some reward there. There was financial reward. There was popularity. There was respect. There was esteem. There was accomplishment. She was making her mark in the community. So I suspect that the business began to make Melody feel more fulfilled than her relationship with Martell, who was an abusive man. Why would I want to come home to somebody who is an abusive asshole? Why would I want to come home to somebody who's always complaining about everything, who treats me like a slave and a sex object? Martell was like diminishing returns for her. So I think that, him asking her to suck his penis or give him more sex, it kind of turned her off a little bit, because it showed where his priorities were. Here I am trying to build our family business, and all you care about is getting your meat wet. That is where your priorities are. That's who you are as a person. We're not equally yoked here, but you want to use me to make yourself look better, as if you are some big boss, successful man. Has Martell ever accused Melody of lying on him, right? All he says is, oh, you do this too. So Melody hasn't lied to Martell. She's basically exposed him for what he was doing. Not even exposed him. She let him expose himself. Melody has Mars in her 12th house, the house of secret enemies, okay? Mars in the 12th house is like being stabbed in the back by somebody you love and care about, right? Mars in the 12th house is like sleeping with the enemy, literally and figuratively. And that is what Melody did not understand. I think that at some point, she began to realize that Martell was trying to sabotage her on purpose, that he was competing against her and the business. I don't think he cared about destroying the business outside of him losing the money, right? I think he began to resent the business even because he was being held accountable to it. The business was now controlling him and his schedule and his life and his wife and his family. He had to rearrange his life to accommodate the business. And I think he resented that. I think he resented losing his freedom to do whatever he's doing now, because when you're running a business, there is no time for hanky-panky. You can't play hooky all day when you're trying to grow a business. Maybe if you have a successful corporation with lots of staff that are competent and that can automate some of the processes and procedures without you micromanaging them, maybe you'll have more time to chill out, fall back and, travel while you're supposed to be on the clock. But they weren't at that point yet. The businesses were still at a nascent stage. They weren't even like 5 or 6 years old at the time. So they were still trying to establish themselves in that industry. So the majority of their focus was going to be on the business. And I think Melody justified it by saying that, well, I'm doing this now so that my children can have a future where they don't have to beg for a job. They don't have to work for somebody else. They can go to college and work for me and our family business right out of college. Melody wanted to build a family legacy for her and her children and her grandchildren, okay? She did not want her children to have to make the sacrifices that she was making for their business. And I think Martell initially thought he was that way too. I think Martell sold himself as somebody who wanted a good life, who was responsible, hardworking, all this other shit. I think he convinced Melody that they were on the same page. And maybe initially they were, until Melody started to eclipse him and the business started to eclipse him too. So I think the marriage started to become more about the businesses than their relationship. At least that's how I think Martell started to feel, that everything's about the business. Everything's about what Melody wants as far as growing the business. So there was some resentment, even though Melody was sacrificing to build his brand. And even though he was benefiting from the clout and the power and the esteem and the money that was being generated from the business, he started to resent the business because his wife appeared to be more invested in the business than him. But again, why would Melody want to be more invested in something that's giving her diminishing returns, no matter what she does? Because he needs an incessant amount of attention like a child. In season 1, Martell complained that when he called Melody, she would be too busy to answer the phone. Okay. And anyone who's ever had a job knows that you can't be on the phone all day. Okay. Especially if you're running a business. You can't be on the phone with your boyfriend or your husband all day long. Who does that? So Melody exposed that Martell was on the phone with Ariane all day. How are you supposed to be investing in our business and you are having conversations with somebody who's not even a part of the business, who can't help grow the business? You're talking to this person every single day, all day, because you're needy for attention? So imagine if that's what Melody did. Martell wanted Melody's attention all day, every day, which would distract from their company. So Martell needed to be on the phone with Ariane all day, every day. To feel what? To feel like he wasn't being replaced by his business, to feel like he was getting attention from somebody, some supply, right? And this is a testament to how little he was really doing for the business. How are you on the phone all day, every day with somebody? This is season 1, Melody said this. I got the receipts, right? I pulled the phone records. You're on the phone with her all day, every day. That's what she said. If you're running a business, how do you have time for that? Which means you wasn't doing shit really, but using Melody's work to make yourself look better so that you can pay for your mistress. You were using Melody to pay for your mistress. And in his narcissistic, passive-aggressive way, he was spending money on Ariane, right, to punish Melody for her success. So I'm going to take what is most valuable to you, which is your money in a sense, and I'm going to spend it on your enemy. I'm going to use your work ethic and your success as a weapon against you because I'm going to take the fruits of your labor to spend it on another woman who I have brainwashed into hating you. So even though I use the business to look like a reputable man, to look like the father of the year, to look like the primary breadwinner, I resent the business to the extent that I'm going to spend more time with my mistress than I will be on my business, to the extent that I'm willing to destroy my business by playing hooky, or I'm willing to sabotage my business in order to get attention from my supply. Okay, it's always about attention and control for Martell. This is why in season 1 or season 2, Melody said, it's impossible for me to give Martell the amount of attention that he needs, which is probably why she told him out of frustration and disgust. She probably told him facetiously to get a girlfriend, not because she wanted him to do it, but because she was like, you want so much from me, find something else to do. We got 4 kids, 3 kids. Some fucking is going on. They're having sex. Okay. They had a huge portrait of them naked, I guess, or being intimate with each other on their wall. That is Martell's priority. Sex and emotional overindulgence. Okay. There's never going to be enough for Martell. So Martell finally admitted that Sheree was his girlfriend because Melody said that Martell was trying to get back with her 4 or 5 weeks ago, which I believe is either during the vacation or right after. I don't know. I'm not surprised about that. But now he wants to claim Sheree to prove that he wasn't trying to holler at Melody. I said that Martell was going to triangulate with Sheree before. So now you're going to claim Sheree after you said she wasn't your type. That's what I read somewhere. Martell kind of dismissed her and said she wasn't his type. It was just business or whatever the case may be. Now she's your girl when you need to use her to make Melody look bad. Meanwhile, Ariane had some sort of breakdown a couple of weeks ago because she started talking about the things that Martell was doing with her during the time he was messing with Sheree. Okay? Triangulation. Right? Ariane is now old supply. Sheree is current supply. And Melody is futuristic supply. Melody is Martell's preference. He is going to compare every woman to her. Now, I think I remember saying that even if Melody does not engage with Martell, he is going to triangulate with her ghost. He is going to use her memory to keep other women in check. He's going to use the idea of Melody to control other women who are interested in him, right? Because he's going to compare these women to Melody, okay? And he's going to do this to justify treating them like shit, to justify treating them like a piece of meat. So even after you have groveled for Martell and you have disrespected yourself and debased yourself to the extent that Ariane has for Martell, you're still not going to be good enough. You know why Ariane's not good enough for Martell? Because she defiled herself with him. She allowed him to do whatever he wanted to do to her and with her. She has no self-respect, so he doesn't respect her. But he needed her to have no self-respect to weaponize her against Melody. So Ariane's lack of self-respect initially made her more valuable to Martell than Melody, right? I'm going to explain why. Because a woman with no self-respect is going to allow a man to control her entire life from beginning to end. She's going to allow him to manipulate her, to lie to her, to use her, to call her a peasant so that he can be on a pedestal above her. But once Melody left Martell, she lost her value because all he had left was a woman that he defiled and psychologically and emotionally abused and manipulated to the point where she has no value even to herself. So how can she be valuable to him if she has no value to herself, if she's worthless to herself, to the point where she will allow this man to continue to use her like this? If I was Sheree, I wouldn't even take Martell seriously. This is a disgrace. For you to try to claim somebody after you've said that wasn't your type. What, did you say that to calm Ariane down? So you're lying to Ariane and Sheree, two women again, right? And you're lying to Melody, right? You are comparing these two women to Melody's ghost. And as soon as Melody rejected Martell several weeks ago, things started going downhill from there. Remember I said a few weeks ago, the reason why I believe that Ariane said that double six statement about Melody is because Martell went back to her after Melody rejected him during vacation and said something to Ariane to make her feel like he missed her, like she was still valuable to him, right? And so, like a combat roach, I said, she tried to use Martell's poisonous breadcrumbs to get back at Melody for still having Martell's heart, okay? And Martell likes this dynamic. He's trying to recreate it now. He's trying to recreate the dynamic he had with Melody and Ariane during his marriage now with Ariane, Sheree, and Melody. So now you're going to call your ex-wife, right, while you're with your girlfriend talking about how I miss you so much, while you're sleeping with your baby mama, okay? Constant supply. Martell gave Ariane 2 sentences in the text messages that she shared a few weeks ago. Martell said, I thought you grew up. Best of luck. 2 sentences, and then Ariane got triggered and went off, right? Meanwhile, he's writing whole paragraphs about his ex-wife. It's not like he just met Ariane, okay? He's known Ariane for 7-8 years now. That's a long time. But he can only give her 2 sentences after everything she put up with for him. That's why she went off. But he got all this energy for his ex-wife, who he said he doesn't want anymore. He doesn't want her because she don't want him. It is as simple as that. So at the end of the day, Martell is trying to deface Melody. You know how you see statues from ancient Greece and Rome and Egypt, and you see the face has been disfigured. Somebody took a stone and smashed the eyes and the nose of the individual so that you can't recognize them and they have no identity. This is also a way of establishing your dominance over somebody, right? I'm going to take a hammer or stone to smash your image, your face, so that future generations will not recognize you and they won't know your name, right? Martell is trying to destroy Melody's brand with these accusations of her infidelity. Again, nobody cares about who Melody was having sex with or had fellatio with after she found out Martell had cheated and had an affair for 2 years. Nobody's concerned about that. But because men know that their penises are used to defile women, to disrespect women, to taint women, like Corinne Steffens said years ago. Corinne Steffens said that men judge women harshly for being sexually liberated because they see themselves as dirty, right? So a woman becomes dirty only after a man has touched her, which means that the man is dirty. So Martell knows that accusing Melody of having sex with other men will make her appear to be dirty or worthless, right? Martell is setting a trap for Melody, okay? I said a few weeks ago, it is very counterproductive to get in a fight with a pig because while both of you are getting dirty, one of them is enjoying it. Martell's enjoying this. He's enjoying the idea of tarnishing Melody's reputation because he blames her for tarnishing his reputation by way of exposing what he was doing, right? She wasn't lying on him. She just talked about what was happening in her real life because he had become so disrespectful and arrogant with it because he was punishing her for her success. So as long as she was Mrs. Melody Holt, right? CEO of Holt & Holt, star speaker, public speaker, brand ambassador, all the stuff she was doing. He was going to use his infidelity to hurt Melody, right? And to keep her under his control and to cut her down to size. Imagine your life partner, the father of your children, your husband, and your business partner putting you on the same level as a woman who has no value to herself or to him. He was making her compete with a woman who he doesn't even want to be with. Her only value was her ability to hurt Melody because no woman wants to lose her husband to anybody. So just like Martell, Ariane also gained power through Melody, right? Because without Melody, nobody would know who Ariane is. Without Melody, Martell would not look as good as he does. Not physically, but as socially, right? She gave him clout and esteem and respectability. She cleaned up his image real good. And he loved the image that she created for him. He loved it. But at the same time, he resented it because that's not who he truly was. He resented the image that Melody crafted for him, that he benefited from, that he enjoyed. He enjoyed it and resented it at the same time, right? Welcome to narcissism, okay? He enjoyed the image that was crafted for him by Melody because it gave him a lot of power and esteem and respect in society, which made it easier for him to disguise his flaws. Like I said, everybody was surprised that Martell did not have his builder's license. We all assumed that he had the builder's license because he was supposed to be the dominant parent. He was supposed to be the primary breadwinner. He was the man, and Melody was just his helpmate. When we found out that not only Melody had the builder's license, but she was the brains behind everything, the whole house of cards began to collapse for him. Okay? Because we also found out that Martell wasn't cooking or cleaning for the kids either. Right? So what were you doing? You were making babies with your mistress, who you were speaking to on the phone all day, every day, who you were willing to destroy your marriage for. Everybody saw how hard Melody fought for her marriage. Martell doesn't care about that. He only cares about the fact that it was exposed in the first place because he needed that image. That image was as valuable to him. The image of success, the illusion of success, was as valuable to Martell as the Holt & Holt business and brand was to Melody, right? So their goals were kind of aligned in a way, right? Martell wanted the esteem and the clout and the power, and Melody wanted a successful business and brand. So that's what kind of brought them together. In a sense, that's what made them compatible for a while, was the fact that they shared a goal. Or they realized that they could help each other to reach their goals, right? So if the business becomes successful, this makes Martell look good, which makes Melody look good, which makes the whole family look good. Melody looks good regardless because of the business success, but she wants her man to look good too because that is a part of the brand itself. And I've said this before, Martell and Melody were married to each other's shadow. Even though Martell and Melody are both very competitive and they're very image conscious, Melody builds while Martell destroys. And we could see that based on his relationship with Ariane. He had a woman that was willing to do whatever he wanted her to do. And he still has not done anything with her outside of still giving her oral sex and using her for narcissistic supply when after he's done smashing various women that he's never going to claim either. He's not going to marry Ariane. We all said this. He doesn't have to marry her because she doesn't require it and she doesn't trust him and he doesn't trust himself and he knows that she's not his preference or his type. It's a whole nasty, gnarly mess here that Martell is the center of. Martell is the only man in the situation. He's supposed to be the leader, but he's leading all these women into chaos, right? Melody is not bothering Ariane. She's not bothering Sheree. Sheree's not bothering Ariane. She's not bothering Melody. Ariane is kind of bothering Melody still, and she's not really bothering Sheree. Martell is the centerpiece in this. He's central to all these women's lives in a sense, right? He is what connects them all together. And somehow, these women's lives have become more messy since he's gotten involved with them. So back to my original point. Martell wants to control Melody, and Melody is fighting to maintain control over herself. This is usually a very nasty battle, right? When you have two people who have objectives that are opposite each other, right? Whoever wins is the one who's most determined to win. So Melody has to fight just as hard to stay away from Martell as he is fighting to take control over her life. And I think he's setting a trap for her. He's going to try to make her look bad the way that he thinks she made him look bad. Not understanding that most people don't respect Martell and they don't like him because of how he treated his wife after it was revealed he was having an affair, of what he allowed to happen to Melody. Martell's actions are the reason why people don't like him. Not the fact that Melody exposed his behavior, okay? But in Martell's mind, nobody would know about my dirt if you hadn't told me. So he was okay with abusing Melody as long as nobody else knew about it. Because if nobody else knew about it, he could still pretend to be father of the year, right? He could still pretend to be the primary breadwinner. He could still pretend to be the perfect husband, all this stuff. And he would use that as bait to attract more supply to him. So he wanted to continue to use Melody and destroy her at the same time. This is classic narcissism, NPD. Not somebody being arrogant, not somebody being cocky. This is the personality disorder. because there's so much dissonance here. On one hand, you want to be married, then you want to be divorced at the same time. On one hand, you hate your wife or you resent her for not having enough time to be with you. At the same time, you're not making it easier for her to spend more time with you, because instead of investing in your business, you're investing in the mistress, which gives your wife more work to do, and that gives her less time to spend with you, which you are now using as an excuse to keep cheating with your mistress. Martell told Dr. Francis that he did not see anything that he did wrong. He would not do anything differently. But now you're complaining about the fallout from your actions that you would not change. Martell never said Melody lied on him. I don't remember that. He might have, but that's not his complaint. His complaint is that Melody exposed him for doing what he was doing in real life. So he keeps talking about her cheating with a married man because he's like, why would you leave me for cheating on you if you're going to be with somebody who's doing the same thing to their wife? So he did not expect Melody to leave. He expected to be able to have a whole girlfriend and a side baby while his wife protects his reputation. And so many women have done that. So many women in the church do that for their husbands. So many dumb women do this shit. A lot of dumb women, or a lot of pick-me, weak women, what they will do is they will hide their husband's indiscretions, allow him to disrespect them publicly and privately so that he can continue to disrespect her. A lot of pastors do this shit. And a lot of women stay. And I think Martell expected Melody to stay. Everybody's saying that. And he said it himself. He did not think that she would leave, no matter what he did to her, no matter how much he abused her. He feels like she's not justified in leaving because he owns her. Most men think they own women, right? A few months ago, I said that Martell destroyed his family for somebody he doesn't even want to be with. This is not uncommon. Men have sex with women they don't like all of the time because their penis is a weapon of war, right? If you look at the symbol for Mars, you see a circle with an arrow pointed out of it. In essence, it's the male phallic symbol. So Martell is at war with Melody now, and Melody is at war with Martell. One person is the hunter and one person is being hunted. I think Melody understands what is at stake here. She understands that if she allows Martell in her life in any capacity, he will suck her down into this vortex of toxicity and dysfunction, which he is already trying to do by triangulating with Cherie and Ariane while he's still trying to reconcile with her. In season 2, Melody explained why she had to leave Martell, and she said, I am not going to be stuck in this toxic cycle of dysfunction and chaos and whatever issues that Martell has that led us to this point in the first place. This is not what I wanted for my life. Melody busted her ass in school. She was always going to be a successful person. That's what she wanted from day one. She was not going to let Martell get in the way of her plans. And Martell resented that. At the same time he resented it, he wanted it for her. Because if she became successful, he automatically looked successful too. And he didn't have to do any work. He didn't have to get his builder's license. He didn't have to know the ins and outs of the business. He didn't have to make any sacrifices for the business. All he had to do was show up and be Melody's arm candy. And he would get the same amount of clout and esteem and power and money as she, because she is his helpmate. She's his wife. She's his trophy. So he valued her and resented her at the same time. This is why you cannot make most of these men happy. You cannot. Men complain about women never being happy, but you got a woman who was willing to do all this with you, right? Willing to build you up, who believed in you more than you believed in yourself. And you still sabotage that relationship because you got jealous of what she was doing to make you look better. You got jealous of the business that she was building, right? You were both doing it initially, but as it grew, she needed to invest more time in it to help it grow even more. The bigger a business grows, the more you have to maintain it. But because Martell was never that dude, he didn't understand that. He just liked the idea of being a businessman. He just liked the presentation, like the suits he wears, right? I'm a businessman. Look at my suits, right? Look at my 3-piece suits and my shoes with no socks, right? Look at me. I'm an esteemed, respected man in the community. I have the perfect wife. I am the perfect husband. We have the perfect kids in the business. That's not who he really is. At his core, he's really ratchet. So because he's really ratchet, he focuses on ratchet things, side pieces, and getting his penis wet, instead of focusing on his business and his children. What Martell does not understand is that he's making it more difficult to get what he wants as long as he antagonizes Melody. And he resents the fact that Melody has the power in this situation. How does Melody have the power in this situation? She's still doing what she was doing when she was married to him, right? And he's doing what he was doing when he was married to her. The things that she was doing during the marriage that she's still doing now is getting her more money, more power, and more clout. right? And more respect. The things that he's doing now that he was doing during his marriage, brought him what? A bunch of women, a side baby, and no builder's license. So he was just as jealous of Melody during the marriage as he is now, because nothing's changed for her essentially, except that he's gone. He's no longer in a position to clip her wings or to benefit from her hard work. This is so deep because Martell's feelings towards Melody is complex, right? On the one hand, he values her because of the value she brought to him. On the other hand, he resents her for the very thing that he values about her, because the very thing that he values about her takes her attention away from him. Martell has always used the kids to control Melody. This is why he kept saying, let's stay together for the kids. I want to get back with you for the kids. It's all about the kids. I want us to be in the same household for the kids. Let's continue this toxic, dysfunctional cycle for the kids. I don't want to be with you. I want to be with the kids. You can still be with the kids. You just can't be with Melody anymore. And that's the issue. So he got the kids, right? 50% of the time. As a matter of fact, I would go out on a limb and say he is actually forced to spend more time with his kids now than when he was married to Melody. Because now he has to cook for the kids, if he does cook, clean for the kids, help them with their chores, help them with their homework, do the girls' hair, do the things that he wasn't doing when Melody was there. I think he has more access to the children now than he did when he was married, even if he's seeing them 50% of the time. Now, Martell posted a video of him basically interrogating his oldest daughter, Mariah, about their mother. And I am not surprised. I don't want to say what I really want to say. I'm not going to say it now because I don't want that to be the future. But I'm not surprised. And if he is who I think he really is, it's going to get much worse. I'm not going to say why. I'm not going to say how. I hope that I'm wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised. This is textbook. Martell's going to further destroy his family by pitting the siblings against each other. This is typical in narcissistic relationships, okay? The children are only valuable to him if they worship him, and he can use them to hurt their mother, right? As soon as the children become independent and start to think for themselves, I bet you know what? I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to put that out there. Yeah. So Melody is fighting for her life right now. She's fighting for her freedom from this man. And Martell is determined to put a black eye on her public reputation the way he believes she did so by refusing to protect him from his own dysfunction. I need you to take care of me and look out for me while I use your love for me to destroy you. While I use the hard work, energy, and effort that you're putting into our business, which carries my family name, while I use that to destroy you. Martell is going to weaponize everything that Melody has used to make him look good, to elevate him against her. This is why he said, when we were married, you didn't have enough time for me and the kids, right? Punishing her for her success, but at the same time, wearing her success as if he worked for it, right? Mr. Primary Breadwinner, head of household, dominant parent, Daddy of the Year. While Martell was not a neglectful father, I don't think, right? I think he was there, but he's putting 100 on 10. I don't think he was there as much as he thinks he was, okay? Because he's not cooking, or he wasn't cooking or cleaning for the kids or doing their hair. What dominant parent do you know that doesn't cook, clean, do laundry, or do the kids' hair? I don't know any dominant parent that is not doing those things, okay? So just like I believe Martell is exaggerating his contributions towards the business, I think he's also exaggerating how much time he spent with the kids, and he's downplaying what Melody has done. He always does this. He always downplays what somebody else is doing, but puts 100 on 10 when it comes to what he's doing, except when it's something that doesn't make him look good. So when he's cheating, it was only a little bit of cheating, but I was the primary breadwinner. I was the dominant parent, but I wasn't the dominant cheater though. That was Melody, right? Even though I have a baby in 5 years while I was married, cheating with this lady, I wasn't the dominant cheater. And I was making all the money, but I wasn't doing most of the cheating. That was on her. He always tried to downplay the negative things he does while exaggerating the positive things that he's accomplished, okay? Which is why people assumed that he was the one who had the builder's license. People assumed that he was the brains behind Holt & Holt, and Melody was just a spokesperson in a sense, right? We assume that because we are in a patriarchy, and we automatically assume that when a man's involved, he's doing most of the work. And we assumed this because Martell was the one who was complaining the most. So we thought he was complaining the most because he was doing the most work, when in actuality, it was the inverse. He was complaining the most because he was doing the least amount of work. And he wanted to cover up the fact that he wasn't doing as much as his wife, which is why he said, you had no time for me and the kids. What was she doing when she had no time for you and the kids? Was she fucking around making babies with random men? Or was she helping to build the Holton Hope brand? If the business was still growing because Melody was busy and she wasn't playing hooky, then that means that she was actually doing what she said she was doing. She was in meetings, consulting with clients, dealing with potential vendors, whatever the case may be. She was handling the business of maintaining a business. And there's nothing wrong with being Mr. Mom. Martell didn't want to be Mr. Mom though, when he was married, but he wants to be Mr. Mom now. But you couldn't do it when you were married. You had a problem with it then, but there's no problem now. No, the problem is Melody is no longer under Martell's control. The problem is Melody is still doing exactly what she was doing when she was married to him, being a boss, being successful at business. He's resentful of that because he feels like he lost everything because of her, without understanding that Melody lost everything too. But how do you lose everything if you have a mistress who's in love with you, that you're in love with, right? Martell had her to fall back on for emotional support. Who was Melody's emotional support and comfort during her divorce? When Martell was stalking her and terrorizing her with a whole baby that he's expecting. Who was that for her? So Martell is basically saying that Ariane really isn't worth anything because he lost everything. But everything he lost gave him the opportunity to be with the woman he wanted to be with, right? The woman he lost everything for, he had the opportunity to be with her now because he had freedom. No businesses to hold him back, right? No responsibilities to anybody but himself and to the kids and to her. So Martell had more free time to be with Ariane, but he didn't want that free time with Ariane because he doesn't value her like that. She's only useful if he can use her to hurt Melody. It's all about Melody. He's competing with her like a female. Like, you know how dudes hate on other dudes who got clout and money and cars and stuff, and then they end up, shooting their homies and stuff like that. Martell has like this fatal attraction, worship, envy thing going on with Melody. Like, he admires her, but he also resents her. And he envies her at the same time. And he's competing with her. So he sees her making all these business moves, which he, was... Let me go back. Martell became so delusional during their marriage that he actually thought that the business became successful because of him. So he was willing to say, I don't want any business ties between us. Nothing. Right? So he's so delusional that he's even lied to himself about his contribution to the family business. He didn't even respect what Melody brought to the table until she took it from him. It's almost like he acted like he was her. He took on her identity. So whatever she did became an accomplishment for both of them. So his cheating was them cheating together. So we did this together. Her working on their businesses and becoming successful was them doing it together. There's no individuation here. So he wanted her to take the blame for his cheating. And he wanted to take the credit for her success and her work ethic. That is so warped. This is insane. Like, he needs to go to therapy to deal with this. They say that there's no cure for narcissism, but somebody has to tell him this is odd. I think he honestly believed that he's the reason why they were successful as a business, which is why he was like, I'm the primary this and I'm the dominant that, but you don't have enough time for us at the same time. So it's like, help me guys, please help me here. So you're complaining about the person not having time for you because they're spending so much time with their business, but you feel comfortable enough saying that you are the primary this, that, and the third, and it was all your idea. You named the company. You made her CEO. If it wasn't for you, none of this would be what it is, right? But now that you're divorced and you have nothing to show for everything you said you were doing during the marriage, and Melody kind of built herself back up within a year or two after divorcing you, you're extra bitter because now it's like Melody didn't lose anything. Melody actually won. Not only does she have the kids 50% of the time, she has more money than she did when we were married. She has more freedom. She's more happier without me. So she's happier without me. She has the kids. She has more money. And all I have is a mistress that I don't even want with a baby that I don't even want to spend time with. So let me do whatever I can to put a dent in her life, to make her life miserable, because she is thriving without me. I can't have that. I've been competing with her since we met, which is why I was verbally abusing her from the beginning of our relationship, which is why I was cheating on her before we even got married, or trying to cheat on her before we even got married. And here she go, having 4 babies, and within 2 years, she's making more for herself than she made. at this because it's funny. This is horrible. But Melody pulled the reverse Uno on Martell. Like, so you convinced yourself that you were you were the reason for everything being what it is, to the point where you were willing to let this lady go, and you were willing to destroy the relationship because she didn't spend enough time with you, and you didn't respect what she was spending her time doing, right, which was the businesses. You didn't respect that, so you wanted to sabotage that and take that from her, and you did. So you knocked her down. Okay, I'm going to take away what you value the most. I'm going to take my love away from you, right, by giving it to another female. I'm going to take my respect from you. I'm going to verbally abuse you. I'm going to take the kids from you. I'm going to try to. And on top of that, I'm going to take away your businesses from you. Because if it wasn't for me, none of this would be happening anyway. So, yeah, I can do this again. And then Melody, within 16 months, within 2 years, I'm sure she's making more money now than she was making when she was with Martell. With the courses she's offering, with the skincare line she has, with the music she put out, I'm sure Melody is like making more money than she was making. This is what happens when you're a positive, productive person that can see the silver lining in everything. Instead of moping around and licking her wounds and blaming the world for everything, Melody said, I'm going to turn lemons into lemonade. Okay, I'm going to do a Tina Turner. All I want is my name. Okay, so Melody produced products. She created products that she's using for income for her businesses. She's not making money doing podcasts, talking shit about Martell, right? That's not her bread and butter. Her bread and butter is her business savvy, which she took with her when she left Martell. So Martell looks like a naked man with ashy knees right now because his ex-wife is making bank by using the show as a platform, of course, but capitalizing on that. And she was trying to do that when she was married to him. She was like, yeah, I'm going to do this acting. I'm going to do this, that, and the third. And some people were saying, yeah, she's doing too much. And, it is what it is. I can agree that sometimes she may take on a lot. But she was like, I'm trying to capitalize on this opportunity to grow my brand, to be more successful. And Martell, instead of going along for the ride, he wanted to compete against her, right? Melody's money would have been both of their money if Martell was a real businessman and he wasn't short-sighted and petty. Melody would have shared her success with him. He would have been able to have his own skincare line for men, shaving cream or whatever, aftershave. He would have been able to do something that was in alignment with Melody's business. And he would have been able to use Melody's brand to elevate his own brand or to produce his own products, right? And he didn't see that. All he cared about was what she was doing wrong instead of what she was doing right. What was Melody doing right? And the things that Melody was doing right afforded them a certain lifestyle. And Martell could have still been benefiting from that to this day. And he would have been in the house with the kids like he said he wanted to. But it wasn't about the kids because he don't want to spend time with the kids like that. If he had let Melody be the boss that she is, he would have been able to be a stay-at-home dad and spend the entire day with the kids. But he wanted Melody to be the dominant mommy and the breadwinner. He wanted her to be his mother again, basically. He wanted her to raise him too. Which is why when Melody was out working all the time, he did not take advantage of the opportunity to learn how to cook and clean for the kids and do their hair and be Mr. Mom so that Melody has the time to has more time to put into their business, or she has the energy to spend more time with him when she gets home from work. Right? So it was never about the kids. And Melody is going to continue to have to fight for her freedom, which is why it looks like they're both petty. It looks like they're both not looking out for the kids, but their struggle is different. Melody's being hunted, in a sense, for her energy, and Martell's the predator. But hunters set traps for their prey. What traps are Martell setting for Melody at this time? And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that by engaging in this public spectacle with him, she is going to damage her brand, which is what Martell wants, unfortunately. And like I said, I understand why she wants to fight back. I'm not surprised she's doing it now. But we are in Mercury retrograde. And during the retrograde, sometimes we say and do things that we may later forget. I'm hoping that Melody can fall back, okay, and just survey the area. Look for booby traps. Look for landmines. Look for, she's really smart. And she knows this already. And I think she's fed up. But Martell is really trying to destroy her reputation, to make himself feel better about losing somebody that everybody likes, right? This is like losing the girl that everybody wants, right? Martell lost his trophy, and Martell knows that whoever Melody ends up with, she's going to level them up too. Hopefully he'll have his own thing going on. Melody did mention that she does not want to deal with a man who doesn't have his own money because it can cause problems. I am not surprised because lots of men compete with women who are bosses. They feel like their masculinity is being challenged when a woman is asserting her own masculinity to get what she wants for her life. I think I said enough for now. Again, I don't want Martell and Melody to continue to fight. I want this to be resolved. We all want this to be resolved. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with a man who is very controlling and who refuses to take accountability for his actions, you're going to have this never-ending battle for supremacy. Martell had 2 sentences to say to Ariane when he was trying to break up with her, right? He said, "I thought you grew up. Best of luck." Now, did Martell tell Ariane to grow up after he slept with her while he was courting Cherie? Did she have to grow up then, right? And that's why she was triggered. That's emotional and psychological abuse. You're going to play me like I'm nothing. You're going to claim this female publicly, and you've never even claimed me. After 7, 8 years, and I've had your baby. You're going to claim somebody else, then tell me I need to grow up and act like this girl. No, we ain't together. It's just whatever. And then 2 weeks later, 5 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whatever. Oh yeah, that's my girl. I wasn't trying to get at my ex-wife. Triangulating with 3 different women. It's like Martell had control over this entire situation. Yet he takes no responsibility for what happened. He had control over Melody to the point where she was taking him back and she was giving him more sex that he wanted. He had control over Ariane to the point where she got pregnant by him. And now he's trying to control Cherie and bring her into this mess. He's controlling all the pieces, but because he's a destructive, petty, vindictive narcissist, he can't maneuver the pieces on the chessboard for him to win. All he can do is get sex and emotional support. So he wants Melody for the money and the clout. He wants Ariane for the sex, and he wants Cherie as a distraction and to keep the other woman in line. Or vice versa. The roles change and they switch it up. Narcissists often switch the roles of their various partners, right? Old supply becomes new supply. The girlfriend becomes the homie, becomes the side piece, becomes a sex partner. Nothing is ever consistent with these people. The only thing that's consistent here is Martell's dysfunction and his need for constant emotional or sexual attention, okay? And I think he feels empty without that. Melody was a bright light for him. She made his life worth living in many regards, right? And she elevated his status. She made him look like the man he always wanted to be. That is what he valued about her. But at the same time, he punished her for the same thing. Because in order for Melody to give Martell the type of supply that he would need, she would have to withstand his abuse. She would have to be tough, a warrior, competitive, loyal, faithful. And he liked those things about her. At the same time, she's also tough, competitive, loyal, and faithful to her business too. To her goals and her plans as well, right? Melody is like, I'm not saying this to worship her because I don't worship anybody, but she really is like a formidable person to deal with. I'm not saying that she is somebody who doesn't need protection. She really does at this point. But I'm saying that Martell is going at her so hard because she is more of a man than he is, in a sense. That's how he feels. Like she has the ability to manifest, M-A-N-I-fest, okay? And people can see that about her. And they want to do business for her because of that. And instead of Martell playing his role, right, knowing what his role is and staying his lane, he tried to tell her what her role was. Women need to know their role. Do you know your role, Martell? Martell's role was in the house with the kids. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if your kids are your priority and you're the dominant parent. Staying at home with the kids should be no problem. But his role was at home with the kids. Since he loves them so much, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what he wants to do because it wasn't about that. It was not about that. The kids are supposed to be an extension of his legacy, okay, of his virility. They're carbon copies of him. They're his possession, right? They're a representation of his success and his power and his dominance over his wife, Melody. She gave me 4 children from my legacy. She's building up the whole family brand for me, right? So now we're in a situation where they're divorced. Melody is pretty much like, I'm happier without you. That hurts for anybody. But that's especially more painful for narcissists because it kind of validates everything he believed about himself from the beginning. He never believed he deserved Melody. So for Melody to be happier without him, it kind of proves that she never needed him in the first place. And she probably would have been better off without him. And I suspect that he started to sense this, which is one of the reasons why he also wanted to sabotage the relationship or to abuse her. When men are afraid of losing a woman, they use mental, emotional, and verbal abuse, and even physical abuse to maintain control over her, which is why Martell was violating Melody from the beginning of their relationship, because he always felt like she was too good for him. And for her to become more successful after they get divorced, it kind of proves that he was correct. And that hurts even more. But instead of, marinating in that pain and taking accountability for his actions and finding a way to politic his co-parenting relationship with Melody to the point where he could benefit too, he is lashing out at her the same way he lashed out at her when they were married, right? He's been doing this to Melody from the very beginning. So what he's doing now is the way it's always been between them. They trigger each other. Martell triggers Melody to defend herself, and Martell feels like he has to defend himself from Melody's high expectations of him, right? How dare you want more from me? I'm supposed to be in charge here. You're not supposed to hold me to a higher standard. I'm supposed to tell you your role. You're not going to tell me my role here. So to prove to you that I'm the man, I'm going to bring another female into this relationship to force you on your knees, literally and figuratively, to serve me and submit to me, even though you're carrying the businesses on our back with 3 babies in your arm at the same time that you birthed out of your vagina. But I'm still the man though. And now that he sees Melody is sprinting towards success, he's going to stick his leg out and try to trip her up as soon as she starts running too fast or gets too happy or gets too, free. You're enjoying life too much. Let me remind you of who I am. You're too happy. Let me bring back the troll from underneath the bridge to remind you of where you came from, right? Of who you used to be. I heard Melody mention something about revenge porn. I think I read it on one of the screenshots that somebody took of her Instagram. Yeah, so Martell doesn't know that revenge porn is a crime, and he may end up in jail for real this time if he releases revenge porn on Melody. And Melody's a very public figure. She has 400,000 plus subscribers on Instagram. If he does this to her, he's going to go to jail. And he should go to jail for that. So I hope he's not deranged enough to throw himself in jail for a woman who doesn't even want him, and for a woman who's going to be even more successful if he does this to her. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. So again, I am going to be suspending my astrology readings and consultations for the month of September as I develop my astrology course for beginners. I will be doing free tarot readings on this channel or my new channel. I'm not sure, yet what it's going to be. I'll post it to the community forum once I figure out how I'm going to go about doing this. But initially, I'm going to do weekly and monthly tarot readings for my subscribers for free. And then if they resonate with you guys and they help, I'll continue. If not, I will resume the astrology readings and consultations for the month of October after I publish my course for you guys. With that said, I know I was laughing during my commentary. This is not a laughing matter. But the irony just tickles me of how Melody became even more successful after leaving him. And he was doing everything to destroy that. Like, that's just hilarious to me. But the situation is awful, right? I would not wish this on my worst enemy. And I have a lot of empathy for Melody because I saw my mother go through this with my father, who is her ex-husband now. And I'm hoping that Martell is not as bad as my father is. With that said, I look forward to reading your comments. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.